You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
We're recording another podcast at night, so it's probably going to be, it's like there's no guarantee that any of this coming out of my brain makes sense.
And not because anything is involved, other than just it being a later hour.
Right. It's just generally when we record at night, I don't have any mental faculties with me to make anything make sense.
Which is not great because you do work nights during the season.
Yeah, I do. That is very true. I think I save all of my mental abilities maybe for the season. Maybe that's why I'm totally incoherent outside of the season.
Well, it's not. Yeah, but this is spring training. You're supposed to be getting ready for the season.
Yeah, that's true.
So let this be your PFPs, your bunting drills, your base running drills, whatever, to get the mental juices flowing here at 9:38 on the East Coast. What is it on the? I was going to say the Arizona coast, but there is no Arizona.
The Southwest coast. No, there's no coast. We are at 6:39. We are on Pacific time. Arizona is one of those weird states that doesn't do. Actually, I guess I should say is more normal in that they don't do daylight savings time. Daylight saving, it's 2018. The farmers know what time everything's going to happen now, right?
That almanac has been published for decades and centuries at this point.
Yeah, I feel like
they know what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, maybe we should just all settle on one clock and stick with it.
I am fine with that.
We're just trying to make progress. That's what we do on the Show Before the Show podcast. And with that, we welcome you into this week's edition, the 152nd episode of the Minor League Baseball podcast from MiLB.com. My name is Tyler Maun in Phoenix, Arizona. We're kind of between Phoenix and Scottsdale, but we're still in Phoenix. I'm sitting basically in arm's reach from Josh Jackson, who is a silent observer right now of the podcast, just staring at me with that thinker face, his chin resting on his clenched fist. There's a lot of mental anguish going on. Not really. He's just doing a prospect primer story that I think is due tonight. So we'll hear from Josh coming up here in a little bit. We were out at and Sam Dykstra, by the way, in New York City. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Tyler. I just like to imagine that's what Josh looks like all the time, no matter what he's doing.
He's very pensive.
Josh could be eating a box of Cheerios, and he's very pensive about what the Cheerios mean about his disposition that particular morning.
They are honey bunches of oats this trip, not cereal.
See, there you go. I didn't even know, and that's how close we are, is that I knew that Cheerios were actually involved here.
Tonight when we got back from White Sox camp, he had 2 bowls. just observe this is the process of the podcast, Josh. This is how things happen. We just talk about as much random stuff as we can for the first 5 minutes or so, and then we go, oh yeah, we have real things to talk about. No, we spent the whole day at White Sox camp today. The White Sox then took on the Padres for a big league spring training game. I watched that. Josh was back on the backfields for the majority of that game. I put together a story on Dane Dunning that is up on the site right now, the 6th-ranked White Sox prospect. Josh got a chance to catch up with Eloy Jimenez, the top prospect in the White Sox organization. You will hear from Eloy coming up here in a little bit. But we got back to the spring training Palatial Estate version 2018 a little while ago, and Josh had 2 bowls of cereal. I had a peanut butter and jelly and 19 handfuls of Smart Foods white cheddar popcorn. If you want to sponsor the podcast, I would eat my body weight in your popcorn. So, yeah. That's, it's whenever and you know how this is, when you go out for a full day at a camp, by the time you come back, your brain is so fried.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Just the idea of us trying to get a smart food endorsement though, is the first time anybody would call this smart. Anything involved with this podcast.
That is very true.
So we'll take it.
I will certainly not disagree with that.
If somebody knows the Smart Food family or the Smart Food family of products.
Mr. and Mrs. Smart Food.
Yeah, obviously. And wants to pass along our information, it's podcasts@milb.com. Hit us up.
I will, take whatever promotional photos you need of me eating or bathing in your white cheddar popcorn. It's like my favorite thing ever. So yeah, so we're back here. Josh did not give me a good look on the bathing in idea for the popcorn. But we're headed out to dinner coming up in a little bit. We're trying to figure out what to do for food. Phoenix is a very good. This is another thing I feel like you kind of get jobbed with going to the Grapefruit League. There's good food like everywhere in Phoenix because there's good Mexican food, obviously, all over the place. But this is like, and we talked about this before on the podcast, this is like the fast food burger vortex, which Josh doesn't get to take part in because he doesn't eat meat. But there's In-N-Out Burger here, there's Shake Shack here, there's Whataburger here. Like every good fast food burger joint is located in Phoenix, which is fantastic. Yeah, so basically it's just my way of saying, like, I could die by the end of the night based on what I eat tonight for dinner, so at least we got this podcast put out today.
Yeah, that's good. Let's make sure we go out with a bang then. But yeah, Florida doesn't really have much of that. It's really Chick-fil-A that everybody talks about the entire time down there.
Really?
Yeah, that's about it. Huh. I think Todd Frazier had a quote about Mets camp. In Mets camp, he thought it was Sunday, which meant Chick-fil-A would have been closed, only to find out it was actually Saturday, and he could actually go. And,
did he find out too late?
No, he found out like early in the morning.
Oh, okay.
Like he was thinking about it that early.
I was going to say, like, he found out at like 11:45 that night and was like, are you kidding me? I could have had it all day today.
No, he was like talking about it in the clubhouse or something like that, and somebody reminded him, no, it's actually Saturday. You can get it whenever you want. So there was that, but yeah, that's about it for like I have my spots. I've been there for 3 springs now, and there's this place called Fresh Kitchen in Tampa that's excellent. It's one of those places it's like super healthy, and your body just feels better for having gone there. That I really like. And what do I usually get there? I get brown rice, romaine lettuce, vegan chili, mango chicken, and balsamic dressing on top, and I swear to God, it's very good. None of that sounds like it should mix well, but it does. And if you're in Tampa, check that out. But that's not really comparable to In-N-Out or Whataburger or any like that.
Why? Well, and we should, I guess, discuss. You're near a place. How close do you actually stay to Yeehaw Junction?
Oh, not ever close enough.
But you go through it because you stopped there again this year.
I stopped there quickly. Yeehaw Junction actually has the Desert Inn at Yeehaw Junction has
Desert Inn at Yeehaw Junction.
Yeah, it's called the Desert Inn, which is hilarious. And they've got like a diner type thing in the bottom of it.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that opened at 11, and I got to Yeehaw Junction at 10:30, and I could not wait it out. And there was a sign on the door at the Desert Inn that said, if you're in a hurry, Mickey D's, and I'm quoting here, it actually said Mickey D's. Mickey D's is 30 to 50 miles in either direction.
Right.
So go there. This is not Miami, New York, or LA.
They actually mapped it?
The fact that it was 30 to 50 miles tells me they're just guessing.
I was thinking like maybe one direction is 30 and the other is 50.
Maybe it could have been, but that's just like, if you're in a hurry, literally go a marathon away from here, and then you'll get your food quicker. And I was like, okay, well, that's saying something. So one of these years, I'm actually going to stop and get a burger there. I just didn't have time this year. I had a flight to catch, and when I passed it the first time, it was 6 a.m, and I was on my way to Marlins camp to bring you guys that Lewis Brinson interview last week.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. So next year, that's a goal.
Well, we're 20 minutes into the podcast and barely touched on anything baseball related, and so you know that it is a special edition of the Show Before the Show podcast. We're going to dive into 3 strikes here coming up momentarily on the spring training edition, but before we do, thanks for tuning in. We're at MiLB.com/podcast. We're on the iTunes podcast little feeds there, and the old Google Play and elsewhere, and you can find us and give us a rating and a review and a subscription. Get in touch with the show, podcast at MiLB.com, or on Twitter. I'm at Tyler Maun. Sam is at Sam Dykstra, MiLB. Josh Jackson is at Josh Jackson MILB. You can get in touch with Josh there. My favorite Josh anecdote so far from the trip was yesterday morning. We each bought bananas independent of each other. I bought 4 and Josh bought 6. So we had 10 bananas, which is way too many bananas for 2 normal men for like 5 days. And Josh said the day after there was a pan in the sink, and I said, "What'd you cook in that pan that's in the sink?" And Josh said, "I don't want to talk about it." So I'm assuming it was something with the bananas that just went horribly wrong. That's all we can.
Which just makes you wonder what his wife has to go through every week.
So let's get into it. 3 strikes for this spring training edition of the show before the show. Sam, your favorite personal spring training anecdote to this point?
Yeah, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast yet, but I had a story come out during my time in Florida. I went to Dunedin to watch Blue Jays camp, and that's actually the first time I've been there to see Blue Jays camp for the obvious reasons. You know, when Vlad Guerrero Jr. is there and Bo Bichette is there, and neither one was actually in Major League camp. I went to the backfields, which is on a different kind of campus. It's not literally the backfields like some of the places in Florida or Arizona where you have the Major League complex and minor league complex is right next door. This was about a mile and a half down the road. Kind of spent the afternoon with the Blue Jays prospects. Just, watching them, observing them. They weren't even going through intra-squad games yet, so just seeing guys get, the kinks kind of rolled out. But I did get to talk to Bo Bichette at the end of the day, and one thing that was fascinating to me about him is that last year he was the minor league batting champion. He hit 362 between Dunedin and Class A Lansing. Did all that as a teenager. Which is fascinating. It might be easier to do that lower levels than upper levels. I get that, but still, this was his first full season, was the minor league batting champ. And you start to think like batting average is something that we kind of take as a fickle stat nowadays. It doesn't have the stature that it once did. And I get that. And I'm all on board on paying more attention to OBP and OPS and all, WRC plus and all that kind of stuff. But Bichette kind of strikes me as somebody who could actually repeat as minor league batting champion. And that's, a very difficult uphill battle to climb. There's so many minor leaguers. There's so many things that could happen. Injuries, he's going to be moving up a level. He's going to be facing tougher pitching. This isn't talking about, Giancarlo Stanton winning another home run title or something like that because he's at the same level. He knows what he's going to tackle. Bo Bichette's going to face new things this year, potentially starting the year at Double-A New Hampshire, or at least seeing time there. A lot that could go into that, but still, this is a guy who MLB.com gave a 70 grade hit tool to. That's very rare. Some of the only people I know in the minors who have gotten a better hit tool are Vlad Guerrero Jr., who was given top of the line 80, and Luis Urias. So he is a rare hitter. So I talked to him about that. Do you think you could repeat? And he didn't shrug it off. He didn't say no. He just said, listen, I'm trying to be the best version of who I can be, and I think I can be better than last year. And if better than last year means I win it again, that's great. And if not, that's fine. But as long as I feel like I've grown as a player, that's okay. And he was just so polished. And I wish we could have used the podcast or the interview for the podcast. I thought about doing that. I don't want to double up on content. I would rather you guys read the story. I get that. So I'm going to kind of leave well enough alone on that. Please do check that out though. But it really comes across in his comments. This is a guy who believes in himself, who kind of has things laid out. If you watch his swing, it's fairly violent, but in a really good way. He's got a lot of movement to it. He's got a pretty good leg kick. Things that shouldn't necessarily fall into place, and yet the second he makes contact, it's like everything. It's like a clock almost. Everything's exactly where it needs to be at the right time, and that's something repeatable. That's something that's always worked for him. I asked him, has anybody ever tried to fix this? Because a lot of times when there's a lot of moving parts, you enter pro ball, they try to smoothen things out. They try to take away things, build you back up that way. And he said, going back to even Little League, nobody's ever touched his swing because A, he's doing so well that they didn't need to, and B, they might have been afraid of his dad, Dante Bichette, who was a major league slugger in his own right, and a very good one at that, and probably, an intimidating figure in the flesh. So I just thought that was very interesting. And for being a guy who, is entering this year as, the number 13 overall prospect in baseball, he seems very self-aware. He seemed very self-confident. And, that's kind of how major league superstars are built. They know what they're capable of. They know what their ceiling is, and they know what to do to get there. And all of that kind of came together in over a 6-7 minute conversation with Bo Bichette on the backfield. So he was somebody I was confident going into the year that was going to do well, but getting to do that, getting to see where he is in his progressions, only makes me more confident that he can kind of hit the ground running. Whether he's back in Dunedin or starting at AA New Hampshire, he's going to be another one I'm going to keep my eye on. So that really good, fun conversation with him. Check out the story I had with him a couple weeks ago. And yeah, that's my spring standout so far. And, as time passes, I think I'll continue to look back on that one as really fun.
Yeah, I've got one that kind of stands out among a guy that broke into the kind of collective consciousness last year, and that is Hunter Greene in the Cincinnati Reds organization. So similar in that regard to Bo Bichette, who we knew about a couple of years ago, but last year really made everybody take notice. Hunter Greene this year, now just going into his first full professional season, being selected in the draft with the second pick last year. But it was really cool that he did not seem 100% like he was in the mindset of giving up the bat at some point. Hunter Greene obviously drafted as a two-way player and a star in that regard, somebody who could play with the potential to be a power-hitting shortstop, but also obviously the work that he is able to do on the mound is really what made him the second overall selection in the draft. Probably could have been a first-round pick just as a shortstop, but was taken with the second overall pick because of how good of a major league pitcher he is projected to be. But talking to him about where he is right now in his career, the plan at this moment is to make Hunter Greene a pitcher. But Hunter Greene, and to their credit, the Cincinnati Reds did not rule anything out outside of that. And so talking to him about it, the most interesting thing was, all offseason he had been working on a swing, he had been taking ground balls, that type of stuff. But in addition to that, we talked about, kind of the wave of two-way players and whether this is something that's just happening right now and could be something that maybe we'll see more of in the coming years in baseball. And Hunter Greene, I had mentioned Shohei Ohtani and Brendan McKay. And the quote that he gave me was, it's a little different with Ohtani and McKay and those guys because they play first base. It's not as athletic or challenging as shortstop. They're able to do it and can get away with it more than I can just because it's less throwing and moving around. But yeah, it's new. Guys are coming in more athletic, but I'd say it's different. I wouldn't compare me to those guys. And I thought that was really interesting that Hunter Greene even sees himself as a different subset of that group. And if I'm a Reds fan, I love that. I love that confidence. I love that belief in that athleticism. It's just a guy who really feels like he can do it all and wants to do it all. And I think that's extremely cool. And for the Reds to be an organization that is right now fine with the idea that he's going to pitch, but if it comes along that at some point maybe the bat would be well served to be getting back into the lineup, the Reds are open to that. And I think that's really cool for an organization to not just say, no, man, we're going to shut it down. You're not going to hit anymore. There's no thought process that would ever lead you to maybe possibly playing defensively at anywhere that isn't on the mound. I just think it's neat that that's still an option potentially for Hunter Greene going forward. So I don't know how much of an option it is. I don't know if the odds are 2% or 20% that we would ever see him in the lineup, outside of just being a pitcher. I think as a designated hitter, that's certainly a possibility. The chances that he ever goes back to play short, I think you would have to see the options all exhausted of trying to get him to reach his ceiling as a pitcher. But I commend the Reds for being open and being malleable in their plan with him.
Yeah, but not only that, I feel like reading his comments last year were, him realizing he couldn't do both. He played at Billings last year in the Pioneer League and kind of realized, this is a lot on my plate, and I don't think I can do both of these things. I want to do what's best for me and best for my future, and that's on the mound. And he seemed very mature in that after being drafted both ways. So to see him go back is he's not going back. I don't want to say he's demanding to play shortstop again or anything like that. Right. He's still sticking on this one route thing, and that's
Certainly.
Fine. But for him to say, like, listen, I do think I can do this still, was kind of eye-opening to me, at least in that interview. And Yeah, the idea that he still thinks he can play shortstop of anything. You mentioned he doesn't think he's Ohtani or McKay, because Ohtani's only going to play DH and McKay is going to play first base.
Right.
That he thinks his arm will be okay to make some of the throws at short a day after he's throwing 5 innings or whatever, or 2 days after he's throwing 5 innings. Either tells me, he's confident that he can do that and he knows better than we do, or he's got a lot of humbling that's going to still come to him over, 140 game season.
And to be fair, he said it more in the context of, it wasn't explicitly retrospective. It wasn't like, oh, this is what I have done. But I think it was more in the abstract sense of, I wouldn't compare myself to those guys because when I was doing it, it was as a shortstop and a pitcher. But it still was definitely with the air of, if I'm going to play in the field, it's going to be at short. So, yeah, I think that spirit holds true. I don't know how much Hunter Greene actually considers the possibility that maybe he could force his way back into the lineup also playing defensively. But if that is the case, he wants to do it as short. And I think the reason why he feels confident he could do it playing short a day or 2 days after throwing is he did. I mean, he did it in high school. And this is a kid who is not even a full year removed from high school, as crazy as that is, being already one of the best known names in the minor leagues. So, but I just love that confidence. I don't know if we'll ever see Hunter Greene take a bat in his hands in a professional game again. I'm not sure whether or not that's going to happen. Jeff Graupe, the senior director of player development for the Reds, said basically, I don't want to commit to anything right now. There's a chance, but we don't know how that's going to look. We're going to focus on pitching. Once we feel like we're in a good place with that, the bat will still get attention, whether that's just in drills, whether it's in batting practice, or whether we put him in a lineup. We're not going to commit to anything right now. But I think it's cool that everybody's keeping an open mind with this, whereas I think even 5 years ago, maybe, probably not 5 years ago, more 10, 15 years ago, you get a guy in, he shows promise on another side of the game. More often than not, teams would say, no, we're going to focus on one thing. You can let the rest of it go.
Yeah, and I feel like that was probably the case even 2 years ago, really. Were we really having this conversation about two-way players before Ohtani, McKay, and Greene all kind of came at the same time? I don't think so. So what does this mean going forward? I don't know. I mean, we've had this conversation plenty of times. Is the two-way revolution coming? Is this just a special batch of players? We won't know for maybe another 5-10 years. But good on the Reds for keeping an open mind for now, and we'll check back in on this, over the course of his development, like we would anyway.
So that's strike one. Strike two this week, Sam, as we continue along with our spring training themed episode 152. I already forgot what episode we were on. Our farm system rankings, our final farm system rankings released this week, and we've been going through position players and pitchers and talked about those coming up to this one, which is the overall farm system ranking. So if you were one of those people who is mad online about where your team has been ranked, this one would be the one to get either mad or very happy about. The Atlanta Braves check in at number 1, right ahead of the San Diego Padres, although we're not sure where they were before Sam undoubtedly tampered with his own rankings. He wrote this
with my own rankings.
Maybe there was a Sam that had somebody else at number 1. It was the Padres, and then this Sam came in and made the Braves number 1, as we know Sam does with the rankings. But no, walk us through the Sam, because this is the upper echelon systems that are extremely good. And then we talked about this year to year. There's a bit of a drop off behind, I would say, kind of those first 3 with the Braves, the Padres, and the White Sox. But even that next group with the Yankees at number 5 and the Rays at number 4, that's a very good group as well. Walk us through these 30, where everybody falls in, but especially this top level.
Yeah, I don't feel like this is as hot take worthy as it could have been, kind of going through this. It just kind of all falls into place. Like, I certainly have my methodology here. You'll note if you go onto the site and check it out that obviously we did position player ranks, we did pitcher ranks, and then we did 21 and under. Don't really consider 21 and under. That's just more of a fun category for us and for you guys to kind of see which systems are particularly young. But going into overall, I do want to keep in mind that if we ranked a certain system, 5th for position players and 15th for pitchers, that they don't end up 4th. I want to kind of keep that all in mind, so you can kind of mix and match some of these. But as you go through that, things really start to fall into place. And I put the Braves number 1. They are the deepest in terms of pitching arms, and that's what pushes them here. We ranked them number 1 in terms of pitching. We ranked them number 7 in terms of position players. But the fact that they have Ronald Acuna Jr., he is the best pure position player prospect in the game right now. Probably should be starting the year in Atlanta. We'll have that discussion closer to opening day. But, they have him already in their system, and then they just go arm after arm after arm after arm from there. Kyle Wright's number 30, Mike Soroka's number 31, Luis Gohara number 49, Ian Anderson number 51, Colby Allard number 58, Max Fried number 83. The way that lays out is there are 6 Braves pitchers in the top 100 right now. You would have to kick one of them out to have a major league rotation. That is nuts. They could make a major league rotation someday of all former top 100 prospects that are homegrown, that came up through their minor league system, and then another guy who's a long reliever. And that's not getting into Joey Wentz, Touki Toussaint, Kyle Muller, Bryce Wilson, who I featured during my time in spring camp. These are all guys with legit chances to be major league starters, except Atlanta doesn't have enough room for them. Now, this all will shake out eventually, but to have this type of depth is something I haven't seen in my time covering the minors. This is going to be my 7th season. I haven't seen a pitching system as deep as this one has been in the past, is now. They add Kyle Wright, who becomes their top pitching prospect in last year's draft. They lost Sean Newcomb, but I feel like some of these guys even improved. Max Fried became a top 100 prospect. Gohara became a top 100 prospect. This Brave system is just too deep to be anywhere but number 1 for me. Now, the Padres are number 2, and the Padres, I don't want to call them the Braves light because they are very, very, very similar, just like 95% full, basically. Again, kind of similar scenario here. We had them for pitchers as the 2nd best system in baseball. For position players, the 8th best system in baseball. Their top prospect is Fernando Tatis Jr., who you'll hear from later on in the show. Very toolsy shortstop. Very likely to stick there going forward. Has a really interesting mix of both speed and power. Really young, finished last year at AA. Everything you like to see in an individual prospect and an individual top prospect. But then just going through the arms, Mackenzie Gore, Cal Quantrill, Michel Baez, Adrian Morahone, Anderson Espinoza. These are all top 100 names, and then it goes deeper beyond that. Logan Allen, Joey Lucchesi, Eric Lauer are all guys who would stand out in other systems, except they're all under one house. Luis Urias is also there. Franchi Cordero is somebody I know a lot of people have fallen in love with for his plus speed and potential to, become kind of a StatCast darling who puts up crazy exit velocities. I think other places have had the Padres at number 1, and I think they have the potential to be there next year when Acuna graduates and some of these arms, maybe Max Fried, maybe Soroka, maybe Allard, all of them graduate out of the Brave system. I'm not quite ready to put them there yet. I don't think they're quite as deep as the Braves, but they're deeper than almost any other system we have here. And you mentioned, Tyler, that I feel like it is kind of an upper tier of these first 3. The White Sox, if the Padres are 95% of the Braves, the White Sox are kind of like 90% of the Braves. They've got the Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert, kind of mix, that 1-2 punch of position players, but the pitching is really deep with Kopech, Hansen, Cease, and Dunning. Zach Collins and Carson Fulmer used to be top 100 prospects. The shine has kind of come off them a little bit, but they're still good prospects, quality prospects in that system. The White Sox have a lot of depth. They have a lot of big names. That kind of puts them over the top from the Rays, who we did have as the first position player system. But I feel like position players are, the systems kind of, when it comes to position players, are much closer. You could go like 1 through 7 and kind of make a case for any one of those 7. Whereas I feel like it's pretty solid Braves, Padres, White Sox on the pitching side, and pretty steep drop off from there. So those push those guys into the top 3. But we've got Rays at 4, Yankees at 5. That was kind of a tough call for me. I like the Rays pitching position player prospects a lot. The fact that they have Brent Honeywell, who underwent Tommy John surgery, I'm not going to take away points from that yet because I still think Honeywell has a really good future and a lot of potential, and Tommy John isn't as hurtful as it once was. The Yankees have some really promising guys in Torres and Andahar, and Florial has jumped into their number 2 spot this year. Justice Sheffield and Chance Adams are the big arms to watch there, along with Albert Abreu, which they're all good. I just don't feel like they're necessarily as deep as somebody like the White Sox or the Rays, who it's like rolling with them. There's another name I really like. There's another name I really like. Another name I really like. So I won't go through all these top 15. I split them up 1 through 15 and then 16 through 30. But just to give you guys an idea, what I'm looking at first is top 100 talent, because that's really what's going to influence a major league roster someday. That's where you're going to find your impact. And then some of the tiebreakers come down to depth. If they've got a number 10 prospect who I really like and who I think could potentially be a top 100 guy or a major league regular someday, that's going to help you over somebody who number 10 is just kind of a filler or a potential backup. But when I was kind of going through this, the more top 100 guys you have, the better. And that's how you end up with Braves, Padres, White Sox there at the top, and then everybody else kind of falling into line.
So you can check out that story at MiLB.com. By the way, Sam mentioned Joey Lucchesi in there of the Seattle Mariners organization. Josh Jackson had a story, or of the San Diego Padres organization. Josh Jackson had a story on the site from the day that we went to Padres/Mariners camp in Peoria. And you can check that out at MiLB.com, as well as Sam's Farm System Rankings. That brings us to Strike 3, the final one in a baseball at bat. And also in this segment, the prospect primers have arrived for 2018. Our season previews for each minor league system, we started rolling those out today. We are doing that in alphabetical order. And Sam, the initial ones that rolled out today, some interesting systems among them. The Arizona Diamondbacks, I know, read a little bit of that story. Michael Avalon put in a lot of work on a system that does have some interesting pieces, but walk us through the ones that we've got out so far.
Yeah, so we are going through this alphabetically. So today we have the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Atlanta Braves, which I wrote, and the Baltimore Orioles, who were written up by Kelsey Hennigan. The D-backs, we'll start with them because you mentioned them, Tyler. John Duplantier, who was on this podcast a couple months ago, is the real standout there. But, this is a system that, a year ago, 2 years ago, we were talking about as kind of one of the worst in baseball. It was between them and the Angels, just not a lot there. And now there is. I mean, Duplantier's turned into the shining star of the system, which Mike Avalone wrote up. Pavin Smith, he's going to be a full season debutant. He's a number 100 prospect after a really promising career at the University of Virginia. He's going to be playing first base, so there's a little added weight to his bat. But he's got good offensive potential. I'll be interested to see what he can do in terms of power. But the D-backs aren't obviously going to be rushing him up because this is a system with Paul Goldschmidt. He's the present and future of the first base position in Arizona. But this is just a different system than what we were used to seeing from them. So I think Mike kind of does a really good job of laying that out, that, as much as we think of, okay, they're improved because they have these two guys here, it does go kind of deeper than that. I'll kind of draw people's attention to the back and healthy part with Jesrado Chisholm, who I think could have a good year this year after kind of breaking out in 2016 and then having some bumps and some bruises last year. He could be really exciting this year. And then Jared Miller, who's long been a favorite of mine, looking kind of major league ready. So that's the good thing I like about these prospect primers, is that as much as we kind of get wrapped up in some of the names, it allows us to go a little bit deeper. And kind of speaking of that, with my Braves one, I feature Acuna as major league ready. There's no way we can get around that. The guy should be in the majors to start at the beginning of the year. He's not going to be, and that's because of service time rules, and that's unfortunate, but it's just the way things are right now. Soroka, right, they also get featured in there, but Christian Pache is somebody I feel like we don't get to talk too much about just because he gets kind of buried. Might be the most exciting center fielder in baseball, and I mean that, or minor league baseball, and I mean that from a defensive standpoint. I put him down as the loudest tool. when it came to his glove. Going to be really interesting to see what he can kind of do at another full season affiliate. Can he kind of fill out his offensive potential? Because if he can, there's a reason why people are saying Acuna is probably not the starting center fielder in a couple of years in Atlanta. It's because they have Ender Inciarte, who's already won 2 Gold Gloves there, or it's because Pache is so good defensively in center that he could maybe even take it over for Inciarte someday. So keep an eye out on that. And then when it comes down to the Baltimore Orioles, again, Kelsey Hennigan wrote that one up. Really interesting from that standpoint. There are some names you'll recognize again, Chance Sisco, Ryan Mountcastle. But Hunter Harvey is finally healthy this year. They've given him a bunch of innings this spring in Major League Camp. He's now on the 40-man roster. There's no hiding it. The Orioles need pitching help. They signed Alex Cobb to a 4-year deal just the other day because their Major League rotation is very shallow. Harvey, as many injuries as he's had, they would love to see him become a Major League starter by next year. What can he do this year, first year on the 40-man? What can he do to kind of prove that? We'll be keeping a close eye on that. And is there a chance somebody like Tanner Scott could also become a Major League starter, or is he going to be headed to the bullpen with his plus velocity? We'll have to keep an eye out. So Kelsey goes really deep on that. We'll be rolling these out over the next, 2 weeks. I think we roll up right up until minor league opening day. We have a landing page for this, so if you're looking to find out when your favorite team's prospect primer will be out, go to that landing page. If your team's already out and you can't find it yet because it's already off the site, go to that landing page. You'll find it there. One of my favorite things we get to do during the year, and we're changing things up a little bit this year by adding some predictions to the bottom. So be sure to scroll all the way. We're predicting who's going to hit the most home runs in a system, who's going to have the most stolen bases, who's going to have the most strikeouts, which current prospect will have the most major league time, and which top 100 prospect will make it into the top 100 by the end of the year. So we get to have a little fun there. Hope you guys enjoy them as well.
Those are coming to the site at MiLB.com, as Sam noted, and that'll do it for this week's edition of Three Strikes. Coming up, we're going to hear from the silent partner in this week's edition of the Show Before the Show podcast. Josh Jackson will join the show to preview his interview with top Chicago White Sox prospect Eloy Jimenez. And then coming up a little while later, Fernando Tatis Jr., my prospect crush, got a chance to talk with Fernando at Padres camp a couple of days ago, so we'll hear from him. And then Benjamin Hill will join us to talk to Sam, and then we'll wrap this thing up. But don't fear, we got a lot coming up for you, and Josh is next. From across the table to now joining me, sitting as close to the microphone as humanly possible, Josh Jackson joins the show from MiLB.com and Los Angeles, California. Hello, Josh.
Hello, everybody. I'm not in Los Angeles, California, Tyler.
I mean, you're from there. You drove here.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm based in Los Angeles. Currently in Phoenix.
I just imagined when I said hello that you were going to do something like the Adam West on Family Guy where he says, "Do I sound like I'm on old time radio?" Anyway, Josh, it has been you got in on Sunday, I got in Saturday.
Yes.
You had Angels camp on Monday, kind of, and then on Tuesday, I was out at Reds camp. Where were you on Tuesday?
I was
commonly known in parlance as yesterday.
Right. I was in Padres camp yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, how did I do Reds camp? I did Reds camp on Monday, didn't I?
That's true.
That's the thing about these trips. When we come down here, and this is our third year tackling spring training together. 2 years ago, we didn't stay together. Last year was the first spring training Palatial Estate, and now is Palatial Estate number 2. A better Palatial Estate, Sam, by the way.
2.0.
This one is definitely 2.0. It's an upgrade. You're missing out, Sam.
Does this one have a funky mirror?
Sam, it has a panini press.
It does. It does. It does. Josh discovered that on day 2.
In all the Mad Libs that you could have said there, this doesn't have a funky mirror. It has a espresso machine. No, panini press was not what I was expecting.
Yeah, it's very impressive. The array of the whole kitchen is really quite impressive.
I have some notes about the coffee cup / bowl.
Yeah,
it's like their one thing, and
yeah.
I don't. It's fine.
I also just noticed that very.
Should we talk about baseball?
No, I want to get this off my chest because it's gonna eat at me the rest of the time. What I should have responded to the Panini Press thing was when you said, no, we have a Panini Press. I could have said, Panini Press, that's my spring training workout. And then anyway.
That was pretty good. That's pretty good.
I was going to say, were you getting ready to make a Ben Hill-like joke? And you were. There's like a very serious wine decanter here too, Sam. You're missing out on all these things.
Are you guys doing anything with the wine decanter or just like, here it is?
We're just admiring it right now in the top
this is available.
Of the open kitchen cabinets.
Neither of you will ever have a wine decanter again, so you might as well take advantage.
This is probably as close as I'll ever get to a wine decanter.
I don't know that I've actually ever seen a wine decanter because when Tyler said wine decanter, I started looking around and then I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, I guess that is a wine decanter. Okay.
Oh man. So Josh, Sam and I first segment shared our favorite little anecdotes of spring training so far. Sam was talking about Bo Bichette. I was talking about Hunter Green. What's something that you've either experienced or seen or heard or liked about spring training at this point?
Kind of a cool little moment I got to see today. At Camelback on the backfields, there was a game of AAA squads between the Dodgers and the White Sox. The White Sox hosting, although both of those organizations are based in Camelback Ranch. And then there was also a AA squad. I was watching mostly the AAA squad because Eloy Jimenez was playing in it, and he was kind of my target there for that moment. And I should specify too that if a player is on a AAA team during one of these minor league games at the during spring training, it doesn't mean that they are going to be assigned. Not at all, really. I mean, these teams are kind of put together for these games and see how they handle whatever level of competition based on a number of factors. But so anyway. I was watching Jimenez mostly in the AAA game, but I did every now and again kind of stroll over to the AA field, which is probably 30 steps away, and just see what I could catch there. And so I saw Dodgers catching prospect Keber Ruiz, who's an exciting pretty young guy, especially to be, if he does end up at AA this year, that's a kind of a challenge for a guy his age. I saw him really sting a ball for a single, and I didn't quite see who was pitching for the White Sox team yet, just because I had just got there, looked up and saw K-Bear's swing. And then then DJ Peters stepped into the box, and Peters was facing Dane Dunning, who I believe you've already
up on the site right now.
Yeah, and you've talked about him a little bit here tonight. So and Dunning, he was pretty tough against Peters in that at bat and struck Peters out. I believe that was to end the inning. My brain's a little fuzzy because again, it was just cool to happen upon what's going on this field. Oh, here are these three. This is
a ranked prospect against a ranked prospect with
very
a ranked
legitimate prospects.
Right. That is really cool. Right, yeah. And that's one of the neat things about the backfields is you just happen upon. Oh, I remember reading about that guy at a profile story. And Sam, I'm sure this is the exact same way in Florida, but they're just so regular. I mean, you kind of expect there's a lot of fanfare, and these are the top prospects, and what they just mix in with everybody else.
Yeah, I had a little bit of that actually at Blue Jays field. Going back to the Bo Bichette story, he was off on one field. He was at field one, which is off in the distance. But at one point, I was looking at Vlad Guerrero Jr. taking live BP against TJ Zoik, who's a former first-round pick by the Blue Jays. And then I turn around, and Nate Pearson is throwing, high 90s heaters basically right behind me. You think that, like Tyler said, that there's going to be this fanfare with top prospects and they're going to be under the lights or they're always going to be in Major League camp. That's just not the case. You go to these backfields, this is the best chance you're going to get to see some of these guys before they are under the bigger lights of AA or AAA or on their way to the show. I can't recommend this enough to just go back and see what you happen upon. It's almost more fun when you just stumble upon somebody like Ruiz, Peters, and Dunning than when they're going to be there.
And you also, as fans, it varies like how close you can get to those backfields. But I think at everyone I've seen, there's at least a spot for you to sit, and you get to also feel like you're part of a pretty special group because, I mean, there's not like 100 fans there. I think there's fewer than 50 probably at each. And
so many of them are player families or players' girlfriends or wives or people, former coaches, that type of stuff. It's not really a whole lot of just wandering fans. There are those, and that's great. But yeah, you do get to be part of kind of a unique clique.
And you can talk to great people like us. I met a couple of really fun people today. One guy that had tweeted at Tyler.
Yeah, tweeted at Sam actually first.
Eric and his son, I met them back there, and I met another father and son duo a little bit later. It's a good opportunity for fans to get back there.
And can I just say, Tyler brought this up too about player families or just like hosting families. I don't know if you guys have had this a lot. I saw a lot of these families from like Class A advanced cities that house these players during the year and make the trips down to Florida just to see them, just to check in and say like, hey, I saw your sister on Facebook had a kid. How is she doing? Like, it's amazing the baseball families that you get to see and kind of rub elbows with, and just the involvement, all over the country. It's not just guys in the organization. It's not just, their immediate family members. You really get to see the impact these guys have as minor leaguers, even in spring.
Yeah, yesterday we were on the backfields of the Padres/Mariners camp, and Adrian Morejon started a game for the Padres. I believe that was the AA level. Because it was the AAA teams were on a different field on the Mariners side. But Adrian Morejon, who spent last year with Class A Fort Wayne in the Midwest League for 6 games, made 7 starts prior to that with Tri-City in the Northwest League. He is 19 years old, and he was pitching with the AA team. Does he head to AA at the start of the year? Probably not. Kind of what Josh was saying. But we could tell there were some people in the crowd who were quite obviously people that knew Adrian from Fort Wayne, some tin cap stuff on, and were cheering for him and all that kind of stuff. And that is really cool. I mean, those connections that get formed in the minor leagues are really, really neat. So we can't recommend it enough. The backfield stuff is great. And today on the backfields at Camelback Ranch in Glendale, Arizona, Josh got a chance to catch up with Eloy Jimenez, the top prospect in the White Sox organization. I creepily hung out a short distance away to try to pick off what of the conversation I could hear, even though I'll literally produce the podcast in which the interview is placed. But tell us about meeting Eloy, Josh.
Well, yeah, it was really fun to get to talk to him today. I had heard, and I think this is probably the first thing I say in the interview. I'd heard that he picked up English and had not necessarily picked up English, but had worked really hard to learn English quickly, and had impressed the Cubs with that when he was with the Cubs. With just the effort that he put into learning English. And if you think about that in terms of how much else he's trying to learn and get acclimated to as a professional ball player, that just really impresses me. So I wanted to talk to him about kind of that and just getting the rest of his acclimation to living and playing in the States. And how that's going. So yeah, it was fun to talk to him about that. He'd also hit a very impressive home run in that AA game against Daniel Corsino. It was the first pitch of the at bat, and he just he made it the swing looks so easy. And I believe there is or will be shortly video of this swing on MiLB.com. He just hammered this pitch over the wall, and it didn't look like it was particularly hard for him. And I wanted to talk to a guy like that about whether, other parts of getting into pro ball were things that he made look easy or that he felt were easy. I've heard that you've learned English very quickly, and that you've done a lot of very good work in learning English in a short amount of time. How much is that something that you've been focused on as much as you've been focused on all the parts of baseball?
First of all, it's because I don't know, I feel like bad with myself. Like I can't even talk with my coaches about anything, and I'm say I need to learn something like for communicate with my coaches and say, okay, let's put it work, and focus in baseball too. But at the same time, I need to focus in my English.
Has it been easy or hard for you?
It was kind of easy, hard, and funny.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Having some fun with it.
Yeah, like funny and little bit of how do you say it? Like I don't know. It was funny, but at the same time it was awkward. A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm feeling pretty good with myself.
I know that you've talked before about being a leader and wanting to be a leader, and I know the White Sox see you as somebody who can come up in the system and be a leader on all the different teams that you play on. How much of your desire to learn English has been kind of a part of that, like being able to communicate with everybody and talk to everybody?
Yeah, that is one of my thoughts in my mind. If I want to be a leader, I need to be completely like bilingual, and I need to be like leader outside the field and on the field. Like I try to be like one of the guys. Like you saw him watching, and you say, "Oh, this may be gonna be one leader one day." That's why I play the game like that and try to learn English and like try to do everything outside right.
Have there been other parts of American culture that you've had fun learning or found very strange to learn?
Not really. Like right now, it was like little kind of like hard for me.
Yeah.
To learn other like culture and all that stuff. But at the same time, I say if I want to play here, I need to learn the culture and all this stuff.
Yeah. Have you found any like TV shows or movies that watching helps you understand?
Yeah, like music, like
music.
hip hop music.
Yep.
A lot of like superhero movies and all this stuff. And kind of like a little bit of shows, like TV shows.
Today you hit that monster home run. How much fun did you have getting that swing off in that inning?
It was pretty good. Like I feel pretty good after was 0 for 2 with 2 ground balls to third, but I'm just putting in my mind like I need to hit it, like putting the ball in the barrel, and
no problem doing that on that swing.
No problem.
Yeah, that went a long way. The last thing I'm going to ask you is we're asking everybody we talk to about the new rule changes for extra innings. We're going to start a runner on second base in the minor leagues. Have you heard much about that?
Not really. I'm not even.
Nobody told you.
No.
Yeah, for minor leagues games, throughout the minor leagues this year, if it goes to the 10th inning, there's a runner on second base. Just to speed things up, I think, to not waste bullpens.
Yeah.
What do you think about that idea?
It sounds good. Like I don't know. Sounds good and sounds bad. Like if you away, it's kind of like okay. But if you're at home, yeah, of course,
right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Eloy, for taking the time to talk. Actually, can you say your first name for me? Because I hear Americans say Eloy a lot. Is that correct?
It's Eloy.
Okay.
Whatever.
All right. Thank you so much. It's fun to talk.
The thing about Eloy Jimenez that's really fascinating too is like you think he's a normal-ish sized guy until you see him against an actual normal-sized guy. Like Josh is a very normal-sized human being. Eloy Jimenez is gigantic. He's a huge dude, and not like he's 7 feet tall, but he's just built. He's probably, whatever he's listed at, 6'3", 6'4". He is a big-bodied guy, though.
He is, and he looks, bigger now than he did a couple years ago. I'm sure that part of that is just growing up. He, he's he just turned 21 in the fall in November. So, and yeah, the last time I saw him, like close enough to actually see how big he is. That's another thing. I think you guys probably, I know it's been discussed on the podcast before, but when you see a lot of players on the field, they don't look especially big.
Right.
But then if you're actually standing near them, even, within 10 feet, you're standing near them, you see that they are pretty incredible physical specimens. But yeah, Eloy has grown into his body.
He's listed at 6'4", 205. There ain't no way that dude is 205. Josh Jackson of MiLB.com. You can find on Twitter at Josh Jackson MiLB. Now slinking away. Goodbye, Josh. Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Well, now we're going to turn it back to you, Tyler, because you've got an interview here coming up with Fernando Tatis Jr., who we talked a little bit about earlier in the show. But you got to talk to him down in Padres camp. What kind of stood out to you? What should people listen to here in a couple of minutes?
Yeah, you know what's so funny? I think you'll notice in this interview, Fernando's a pretty soft-spoken guy, which is not at all how he came across last year. I got a chance to talk to him a couple of times for some stories for the site, and one especially stood out that I talked to him last July for a story a day after he had hit an inside-the-park homer on Sunday and was on a string of a bunch of straight multi-hit games for Class A Fort Wayne, and was just hilarious. I mean, really energized after the game, and he told me this great story about how when he got home after scoring on an inside-the-park homer, he said he couldn't feel his legs when he got to the dugout because he just was not expecting to have to run that much on that ball that he put into the gap. But just a really energetic, effusive type of guy. He was very mild-mannered and really kind of measured in his answers in our conversation at Padres camp the other day. But I think that's probably due to a couple of things. Number one, he was actually limited that day. I don't think it was anything injury-related. I think just being kept out of action. And that's the type of guy who you can sort of tell how much he is really lit up by playing baseball. And we talk about that somewhat in this interview. That's an energy-giving type of thing for him. He's just out having fun on a regular basis. But number two, I think just being somebody who realizes where he is in the organization right now and being a leader. I mean, he's the type of guy who you can really build a franchise around. He's bilingual. He's a good-looking kid. He's somebody who plays with good flair. He's got a good offensive profile. He plays a terrific defensive shortstop. He can be a cornerstone kind of guy. He just seemed very mature in that respect. He's the son of a major leaguer. He had been around Major League Baseball his entire childhood. Now knowing what it's going to take to be successful at the major league level, having seen some time at AA at the end of last year, that's what I got from him. He just has a quiet confidence about him. And it was cool. Got a chance to talk to Fernando a couple of days ago, and here's how it went.
Tell me about the spring. It's obviously it seems like a big year for you coming up with and having made that jump late in the season. How has this been so far?
It's been good. Been working hard. Been working with the older guys, and now I'm a little bit sick, but getting better.
To get into this group and be around guys you're used to being around guys who are older than you, obviously, and can play with them. But what is it like being around a AA group that's already so talented and you fit right into that mix?
It feels great, man. Being a part of such a special group and forming part of it, it feels awesome. Keep pushing you, and it feels great.
Tell me about last year. Like month to month, your numbers just jumped and got better and better and better. What was the key to that, to be able to adjust? It's so difficult no matter what and where you are, but to do it at your age in the Midwest League, what enabled you to do that?
In every level, you just keep learning of baseball every day. And like I said, I was learning and I was approaching to the occasion, and I think I got not focused, but I just keep working hard, and then the work pays off.
When you are somebody who can, really have a good command of the strike zone, especially being young, that's such a difficult thing to learn, but you seem to have that pretty intuitively. Where do you think that came from? I mean, obviously being a baseball background that you've got contributes some, but how do you think, you develop that as a young player?
Like you said, I think having a baseball background, that helps me a lot. That showed me, from small, what I was hitting and playing baseball for the most part. But like you said, having a background of my dad, it helped me a lot.
We talked last year after that one crazy day, the inside the park home run and all that stuff in Fort Wayne, and it just seemed like you were having so much fun last season with that team, and getting a chance to play in full season ball and be a guy who was relied on as, a key part of the order and a leadership role. What about that? Why are you successful in that role, being somebody who's vocal, being somebody who can be kind of the energy for a team? What about your personality makes you that way?
I don't think of stuff so much. Baseball is gonna be a hard game. It's gonna be tough on you. So I'm just trying to have fun every day. No matter what, I'm having fun and just keep playing the game. And this game, you're not gonna play it for your entire life. So be blessed to be in the field every day and just have fun.
What's the biggest thing you worked on over the off season for this year?
I'm a player. I gotta do everything. So I would say everything: hitting, catching ground balls, running, everything.
When you made that jump at the end of last season, you get a couple of weeks in, you go right over to Lake Elsinore. What was it like getting to Double-A and getting kind of thrown into the fire there?
I like it. They were pushing me. They were training me, getting me to that level, and I like it. I got there and I tried to do my best, and the stuff worked. Being,
somebody who's a teenager in the Midwest League, you're setting marks for what an 18-year-old was able to do, and if you're 19 this year and you go to Double-A and you can do it there, there's a guy in your organization who's done that. Obviously, Arias makes that climb ahead of you and has been young everywhere he's gone. What do you learn from somebody like that who gets to play at levels above, and you kind of get to watch how that goes for somebody?
Me and Urias are almost the same guy. We play this game, and we almost always the youngest guy on each team, and we're just trying to have fun. We play baseball since small, and then we just bring that memories and we just put it in the field.
Let me ask you this question: the new extra innings rules in the minor leagues with the runner at second to start the 10th. What do you think about that? I mean, obviously for you guys, you get to go out and play some shorter days, but it's probably kind of weird. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's gonna be weird. The game's gonna be shorter. We're gonna take a little bit part of the emotion, but that's the new rule. I don't like it that far, but it is what it is.
When you look ahead to this season, what do you want to accomplish? Are there things that you kind of set out as personal goals to start a year, or how do you approach a new season?
No, last year I didn't set up a goal, and I think I did pretty good this year. I'm gonna do the same thing and just trying to have fun in the field and keep it the same way.
That's awesome.
This is a little different this week for a number of different reasons. I am introducing a segment, only of which, as you know by now, is because Tyler and Josh are in Arizona. But also this week, it feels like something new just because we haven't done this in a while. Joining me now on the show is Benjamin Hill. Hey, Ben, how you doing?
Hey, Sam. Yeah, it's great to be back on the podcast after missing the last 3 weeks. I started to feel that maybe I'd been bumped from the show. I was starting to get very sensitive, and I'm upset, but I'm glad to see that things are back to normal. Right,
yeah, that's why we brought you back. We longed for you, Ben, and I'll take part of the blame for that, obviously. I was in Florida. Things get kind of hectic. We filmed a couple shows late at night, and I don't think you wanted to be doing anything at 11 o'clock at night when we were doing some of those. But yeah, it's good to have you back. I want to touch on the big news of the week, obviously, and kind of minor league business is this Copa de la Diversion that got announced yesterday, which is Tuesday. It's this new initiative. It's kind of growing on what happened last year a little bit in terms of outreach to Hispanic populations and Hispanic fan bases. A lot of teams are renaming, they're rebranding for a couple days this season. Some of the names you'll hear are the Brooklyn Jefes, the Toros de Durham, the Memphis Musica, one of my favorites, the San Antonio Flying Chanclas, the Winston-Salem Rayados. The list, we could keep going on and on and on. Ben, you usually have a pretty good ear to the ground on a lot of this stuff. What was your initial reaction to this, and what have you kind of seen over the last 24 hours since these names and logos and whole initiative really started to get rolled out?
Well, my initial reaction, or just my overall reaction, there's 33 teams participating this year, playing a total of 165 games as their alternate Spanish language identities. So this is obviously a very comprehensive program. And, Tyler, your colleague and mine, Tyler Maun, wrote a story providing some more detail on how this came about. But at its core is the general idea, knowledge, fact that, Hispanics in minor league markets are usually not coming to the games in proportion to, what they represent in the overall population. And, I think that sentiment could be extended to most minority communities in minor league baseball markets. So this is the most comprehensive, wide-reaching strategy initiative yet to say, like, well, who can we reach out to specifically, to get them to their ballparks and to do it in a way which is, shows a lot of thought and a real deep-rooted approach to celebrating the Hispanic heritage in different communities. And as, a bonus, the cherry on top to all that is, you have 33 alternate identities all at once. I mean, you and I both know how excited a certain subset of baseball fans gets about alternate identities, whether they're food identities or what if nights or what have you. So to have 33 identities all come forth on one day, is pretty huge, both in terms of what minor league baseball is doing for this initiative, and also pretty huge for just people who like logos and hats and minor league baseball branding. So it's a pretty cool thing on a lot of fronts.
Yeah, and what kind of reaction have you seen, from either, your own Twitter feed or just, minor league front offices, all that kind of stuff in these last 24 hours? It seems like it's been overwhelmingly positive, at least from my view, but, how much buzz is this really generating? Yeah,
and I think what you just said really stands out to me. It's been overwhelmingly positive. We know the internet, and we know that when minor league teams do things, especially when they're a little absurd or irreverent or off the beaten path, you're just going to have a subset of the internet saying, stupid, why bother? This is dumb, not going to that game, et cetera, et cetera. And I saw very, very little of that yesterday. I had one guy respond to one of my tweets with, like, stupid, this is America's game, not really understanding that these are Hispanic Americans we're talking about. They are also Americans. That's neither here nor there. We're a melting pot, whatever. But overwhelmingly negative. You are positive. Geez, overwhelmingly positive. You are correct. And even in overwhelming positivity, even though some of these identities are completely out there and patently absurd, some of them. The one that got the most attention internet-wise yesterday was San Antonio, the Flying Chanclas. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize for any and all of my Spanish. But that's a reference to Hispanic grandmothers or mothers and their propensity for throwing their flip-flops, their sandals, their chanclas, at their children. So, that's not a reference I understood or got, but the response to that showed just how deep-rooted it is in those cultures and what an affection there is for mothers and grandmothers throwing footwear at the youth.
Yeah, that was one of the real educational moments, I think, for a lot of us, and that's part of the point of this, is to kind of get you to understand the other side of the game. I mean, there's a lot of Hispanic players, a lot of Latin players coming up through the game, and you want to A, understand where they're coming from, and B, make them feel comfortable, but that extends to fans, obviously, as well. So looking up exactly what a chancla is and how important that was. I know the Ringer's Shea Serrano tweeted about that and how excited he was, and that really helped pump things up. It's really exciting from our standpoint. But this isn't the first time this has really happened. I know last year, who was it? Las Vegas, Charlotte, Kane County, and I think one other team participated in this, and Visalia, excuse me.
Yes.
What success do you think they saw from that, and how has this kind of expanded from there?
Well, I think that was a trial run. They had the idea and maybe not a full confidence in the idea or just an understanding of how it would implement. So they got a few teams on board at first, a sort of focus group of sorts, do a test run in a few markets, and the feedback they got was good. And obviously minor league baseball, because this is an initiative, emanating from minor league baseball headquarters in St. Petersburg. I think minor league baseball obviously felt confident to extend the energy and resources to making this as available to as many teams as possible this year. And still, it's only 33 out of 160, roughly, 1/5 roughly. So we can see a lot of room for expansion of this idea. And I certainly hope that's the case, and that this is something that we're going to see for a lot of years, and it'll continue to grow and evolve. And you're right. I mean, it's educational. Some of these things that are mentioned are not things that I knew about, being a white American who grew up in the suburbs. So it's not for us specifically, but any baseball fan can learn from a lot of these team names and the logos and the stories behind them.
And the whole name of the initiative, again, is the Copa de la Diversion, which directly translates to just the fun cup. But how exactly is that part of it going to work? You mentioned 33 teams. They're all over geographically, all over the different full season levels. It's not like, this is a bracket that can be set up. How exactly is this cup part of this going to work this year?
Exactly. I do not know. But it's not, when you're talking about teams through all these different leagues playing different amounts of games as this alternate identity, there's no hard and fast metric you can use for the best team. So I know whoever wins the Fun Cup, it's there's going to be a lot of different metrics that go into deciding that, with overall fan engagement and attendance, and who knows, probably social media engagement, et cetera, et cetera. I think it'll be a rather convoluted formula. But at the end of the day, one team in minor league baseball, they're going to want that bragging rights, because this is an industry that loves to brag about anything they can possibly win.
Yeah, and just to borrow from Tyler's story on this, he says at the end of the season, they'll be awarded to one team based on a formula built from a series of different factors, such as converting fans into new attendees, how new foods are received, merchandise sales, and more. It's the and more that has me interested. I want to know what other rubrics are being involved here, but I guess we'll kind of have to find out. I feel like San Antonio's already off to a flying lead.
There you go.
But yeah, Ben, it has been a while since we last talked to you. You've had a lot of different stories over the last couple of weeks. One of which I want to talk about was you did a reaction piece to extended netting. That's something we're seeing obviously at the major league level, but that's extended to the minor league level as teams are really taking into account safety. What did you kind of learn from the reactions you were hearing about extending the netting to as far as the dugouts, across minor league baseball?
Well, for my story, which ran about 2 weeks ago on MiLB.com, what I was going for mainly was the front office perspective from teams who've recently made that decision, i.e., why did you do it? What was the to led up to this? Unfortunately, I was not able to get a total figure industry-wide regarding how many teams have extended netting, but heading into the 2018 Major League season, as we know, every Major League team is following guidelines to be at least the end of the dugout to the end of the dugout all the way across, and more minor league teams. I mean, you get press releases too. How it's just a, if not daily occurrence, a very regular occurrence to get a press release announcing another team is extending the netting. So I talked to executives from 4 teams, got feedback on Twitter from others, and I think really where we're going with this is inevitable is the word I want to use, because fan safety is an issue, and yes, buying a ticket means you're assuming all risks of whatever can happen when you're in the ballpark. And that's a risk a fan has always had to take by going to a game. But especially to me in minor league baseball, when the whole industry is predicated on affordable, family-friendly entertainment, that there are many, many built-in distractions to create a fun environment for everyone, even if you don't like baseball. The preponderance of, devices, cell phones, iPhones, whatever, fans not necessarily always paying attention the way they used to. There is just, it almost seems like there's no going back at this point. And, you and I have talked about this, and this is the kind of conversation a lot of baseball fans have had. If I had never entered into this job, I would probably hate the idea of netting, because I'd just be thinking from the perspective of someone who goes to a couple games and just doesn't like watching through a net. But netting technology has advanced. That might sound like a silly thing to to say, but it's true in terms of how thin it is and the way it's almost like camouflaged, coated over with a light green color. It's a lot less obtrusive than it used to be as compared to a lot of the standard backstop netting that we're used to. So, I mean, that's one thing. And then two, you just think of it from the perspective of operating a team. Anytime you go to a minor league game, you hear the crack of a bat, and especially people who work in the ballpark, there's this immediate pause what we're doing, pause the conversation, make sure no one needs attention, make sure that the ushers aren't running down there, making sure you don't have to alert the EMTs working at the ballpark. And you don't really want that to be an element of your family fun, to think that truly tragic injury could always lurk around the corner. And, most people don't get hurt, and knock on wood, no one ever will again. But it's a fact of life of watching baseball. We have to accept that fact. But at the same time, if there's anything we can do to minimize that risk, I think that's something that's worthwhile. And that's very much the impression I got from people around the industry that I talked to. And that as much as I do understand fans who don't like it from a standpoint of watching the game, it's just, as I said, it's just inevitable.
Right. And it just takes one really severe injury, I think, like we saw a couple years ago or a little while back at Yankee Stadium with a little kid, to make you realize safety really should be paramount here over, losing 1% of the view or something like that. And I think that kind of comes across. And the more you talk to people from the front office like you did, Ben. One other story I want to touch on while we have you that I thought was a lot of fun. I wish we could have talked about it last week. You had a fun story on Emma Tiedemann, who is becoming the lead play-by-play broadcaster for the Lexington Legends, becoming just the second female play-by-play broadcaster in minor league baseball. That's pretty exciting. What did you learn from talking to her, and what kind of went into this story?
Well, when she was announced, I believe that was about 2 Fridays ago, when her hiring was announced, I sent out a tweet about it, and perhaps not surprisingly, just got a lot of response. People are genuinely interested in women breaking into male-dominated fields, and in minor league baseball, like almost the entire sports industry, it's a male-dominated industry. Females are making more and more inroads, without a doubt, every year. But if you look at jobs within baseball, play-by-play announcer, particularly at the minor league level, and of course the major league one, is one that is very, very male-dominated. So Kirsten Karbach in Clearwater is the only lead play-by-play broadcaster in minor league baseball until Emma came along. And so I just wanted to talk to her to just really understand her career path, why she decided to do what she's doing, and how it came about. The story I wrote, which of course you can read on MiLB.com, doesn't really focus on her gender per se. I mean, I think it goes without saying I did a full feature on her because she's a woman, but it's more just about how she came to get this job. And, you can read a lot more in the story, but her grandfather, Bill Mercer, is a broadcasting, I think legend might even be a fair word to use, in the state of Texas. He's still alive, retired, in his 90s now, but he worked for decades calling all sorts of sports, and also taught classes, broadcasting classes. And through those classes he taught at the collegiate level, he ended up recruiting his granddaughter, Emma, to work with him in a game in which he didn't have enough students to work, calling basketball. So she was in high school, and through her opportunity, through her grandfather, got an opportunity to call a high school basketball game. And she said, I had always wanted to be a veterinarian, and as soon as I got behind a mic, everything changed. So she went from there to Mizzou and was very heavily involved in their radio station on campus, worked for a summer collegiate league in Alaska, and realized she definitely wanted to focus on baseball. Did another summer collegiate league in Medford, the Medford Rogues in Oregon. And then St. Paul Saints, one of the premier independent clubs, and now here she is in Lexington, a Class A club, a Class A Royals affiliate. So she's just working her way up the ladder like anyone else, like any broadcaster, like anyone in minor league baseball. But it seems to me like she's well positioned for success, and hopefully we'll see more like her in minor league baseball, as well as in broadcasting jobs out of minor league baseball and just sports in general.
Yeah, and this is a really fun story just from that angle in terms of I think a lot of people wonder exactly how you get into broadcasting, and this is a great way of just kind of illustrating that path as well. We all follow almost every minor league broadcaster that's on Twitter right now. We interact with a lot of them. A lot of you at home probably listen to their broadcasts either on MiLB TV or on the radio or anything like that, and you have to realize how much went into getting to where they are. I think she had a great quote in your story, Ben, about getting reps, how she got reps at Mizzou and how she got reps through her grandfather and through all these summer collegiate leagues. And it's just a nice story from that point of view of, what it takes to build a broadcasting resume, regardless of gender or sex. So check that out for sure. Coming later this week, Ben, you're working on a story. The people heard plenty of our reactions last week between me and Tyler to the pace of play rules, but you're working on something in terms of just the industry-wide reaction to the pace of play rules. What can you kind of preview about that to us?
Yeah, well, there'll be a story with some front office perspectives as well as, farm director and player perspectives that have been provided by yourself when you were in the Grapefruit League, and our colleagues Sam and Tyler are in Arizona right now.
Josh and Tyler. I'm in New York now.
Oh, wait, you're Sam.
I am Sam.
Sam, you're Sam.
Sam, I am.
Okay.
Dang it. Anyway, go on.
I set you off for that. Sorry, Josh. Sorry, Sam. There's just too many of you guys. Tyler and Sam are in Arizona.
No.
You went to Florida.
Give it one more try.
Tyler and Josh are in Arizona.
Thank you. That is true.
Sam, you went to Florida.
I did go to Florida.
All three of you in these different locales solicited quotes on pace of play. I got some more. I'm compiling it into a story, and we'll probably have a separate story or blog post more focused, on my world, the minor league baseball industry. And I think one thing is people who work in minor league baseball, you'll probably find the most be the strongest proponents for these rules because they want to get home earlier and they don't want to operate a team in money-losing situations because there's no revenue in the 10th inning of a minor league baseball game. So I know a lot of fans don't like this. I understand why. But if you want to see some positivity, not manufactured positivity, but perspectives that are actually positive, you'll see some of that as well as a wide range of people that you interviewed. You're Sam.
I am
Sam. That Tyler and Josh also interviewed. I got it right.
There you go. We finally got it. And on that note, thanks for coming back on, Ben. We're glad we got to have you again. You'll be a regular member of the podcast going forward. No big trips coming up, only the season ahead. So glad to have you back, and we'll look forward to doing this again next week.
Thanks, Sam. It's good to be back. And speaking of big trips, 2018 road trip schedules will be announced soon. So looking forward to talking about that in the near future.
There we go. There's a preview for next week. Yep.
We're getting into the segment, and I said, all right, so we can just wrap. And now I was just thinking, what if we just wrapped the close to the show? I'm not going to attempt to freelance it, to freestyle it.
Yeah.
What? That was the lamest thing I could have said. I'm not going to freelance this, friends.
We have to get paid. Yeah, we're salaried rappers. We don't freelance
We're not
anything.
doing this freelance without proper compensation. Josh and I will be here in Arizona until Friday. So if you were tuned into the podcast as of Thursday when it goes up on the site, we'll be here until Friday. I am headed to Texas Rangers camp on Friday to get a chance to catch up with that system. Is intriguing in a couple of aspects, but maybe most intriguing in how it has fallen off a decent amount. The Rangers used to be one of those systems that it felt like year after year loaded up with really, really top-level talent. They do have still some intriguing pieces in it, but they're not quite the system of maybe 5-6 years ago. Leotis Taveras is a fantastic prospect, their top overall prospect, the outfielder, and Willie Calhoun, who we've had, friend of the podcast. I'm really intrigued to hear about Hans Kraus, who was their second-round pick last year, because of this sentence in his MLB Pipeline bio. Quote, he's extremely animated on the mound and has been known to groom the dirt a la Mark Fidrich or throw a shimmy into his mechanics like Johnny Cueto. So I'm really excited to hear about Hans Kraus, a 19-year-old kid who was taken with the 66th overall pick last year. But then that's it. Then it's back home for me and Josh. We have to wait until we can hang out some more. And, maybe one day, all of us, Sam, someday.
That'll be the dream.
We can dream.
We can dream. We should all meet up like somewhere in the middle, like Omaha, like on a Runza's night or something like that.
Yes. Absolutely. And we just discussed, you discussed with Ben, the brand new initiative across minor league baseball, the Copa de la Diversion. And theirs is one of the really, really good ones, Omaha. The Cazadores Tormentas, which is literally Storm Chasers translated, but sounds so much cooler in Spanish. And their logo is fantastic. Yeah, maybe.
Right. That's one of those ones where it sounds lame that it's just Storm Chasers translated, right. But it sounds amazing. Say it a bunch of times to yourself.
Yeah.
Cazadores de Tormentas. This is fantastic. But that logo is really, really good.
Yes.
I tweeted out, like, my birthday is coming up, and my sister was asking what I want, and I want a hat for Copa de la Diversion. And so I came down to 4 choices. It was either Brooklyn, Hartford, Oklahoma City, or Omaha. Just because as much as Omaha, it doesn't feel like a Spanish thing. The logo works really well. The phrase works really well. The whole package is just really well done. So good job by Omaha. Good job by everybody in that program. I'm really excited to see how that's going to go this year.
Yeah, it is a really cool initiative, and you can get more information at MiLB.com. There is a terrific site that was set up with each of the identities and the explanations behind them and all that type of stuff is noted. So MiLB.com/Copa, you can get all that information. You can also buy your merchandise. My favorite, I think, just because of the story that goes into it, Eugene, with all the symbolism behind the monarch butterfly and the symbolism in the logo for Oregon and the 33 countries of Hispanic origin. It's so cool, and it's so well thought out. And Alan Benavides did a terrific job with the Eugene Emeralds, but all of them have such good stories. So go check those out, and that will do it for this week's edition of the Show Before the Show. Next week, back to normal as we get you set for opening day coming up here in a couple of weeks in the minor leagues. And Sam, until then, say goodbye to Josh.
Say goodbye. Bye, Josh.
Say goodbye, Josh.
Bye, Sam.
Bye, everyone.
I thought Josh was going to say bye, Josh.
Good night, Kevin, is what I should have said.